Namaskar, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, students and scholars, teachers and trainers, professors, professionals, officials, listener learners. I welcome all respected doctors and directors. I welcome honorable ministers and managers. I welcome honorable advocates, advertisers, and administrative advisors. I would like to welcome the most honorable President Mr. Modi ji. It is really nice time, nice place, nice section today. We are appreciating, admiring, praising our holy Indian culture, our holy Indian cultural land. Basically, fundamentally, it is known by unity, diversity. All spiritual starters, beginners, initiators, creators, generators, saints, spiritual founders, born in India, it is really a matter of great proud. It is praiseworthy, admirable, and appreciable. Our nation is known by its spiritual, social, political, educational, national, and international values because of spiritual values. Our holy Indian culture, constitution say us to be united, oneness, equality, and unity is the great identity of our nation. In the whole holy scriptures of our holy land, nature is said common concept. So we should praise these natural changes as per the will and wish of God. What is the message of our holy Indian earth? Let's go through. Russia backs MCA offers to make Su-57 jets in India from New Delhi. Russia reaffirmed its commitment to deepen defense cooperation with India. With its ambassador Danish Alipo expressing his country's readiness to support India's advanced medium combat aircraft, medium combat aircraft program to the local production of the Su-57 fifth generation fighter jet. Speaking at an era, Speaking at an event on Thursday, Mr. Ali Pau shared Cabo underscores the long-standing strategic partnership between the two nations, which has evolved far beyond a traditional buyer-seller relationship into one of joint development, co-production, and full technology sharing. He also shared that both sides are exploring collaboration in next-generation technologies. The announcement comes and the announcement comes amid growing speculation about the future of the India-Russia oil trade following US President Donald Trump's claim that India would soon halt such proceedings. Trump and MEA at odds over Russian oil imports. Trump claims Modi gave commitments to stop buying oil from Russia soon. Ministry denies the leaders discussed the issue. But says government is broad-basing and diversifying its energy sources. From New Delhi, India and the United States continue to differ publicly over Russian oil as US President Donald Trump said he had been assured by President Modi that India will stop buying oil from Russia, while the Ministry of External Affairs maintained the two leaders had not spoken about the issue. However, the MEA said that India was not basing and diversifying its sources of energy according to market needs and did not specifically deny the claim that it was reducing its intent. Born of contention, the subject of Russian oil, which has led to the US imposing penalty tariffs on India, is also believed be holding up trade talks between the two countries, while the government has consistently denied it would bow to pressure. Data analyzed by the Hindu showed that while public sector undertakings have dropped their Russian imports by as much as 45% between June and September this year, even though Russia remains India's biggest supplier overall. I'm not aware of any conversation yesterday between the two leaders. MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal told reporters here on Thursday, also clarifying that a call between Mr. Modi and Mr. Trump last Thursday had only dealt with the Gaza peace plan and India-US trade issues. On Wednesday, Mr. Trump had said he was confident that India and its oil imports soon, but not immediately. Modi outsourced key decisions to the US Congress, New Delhi. Amid the India-US exchange over Russian oil, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi on Thursday said Prime Minister Modi's Prime Minister Modi is frightened of US President Donald Trump. In a post on X, he also said Modi allows Trump to decide and announce that India will not buy Russian oil. He is sending congratulatory messages despite repeated snubs. Skip Sham Al Sheikh doesn't contradict him on Operation Sindhu. China defend oil purchase plans US for Berlin from Beijing. China on Thursday said that its purchase of Russian oil were legitimate and decried recent unilateral Berlin measures by the US as the trade now between the two countries continues to intensify. The reaction follows US President Donald Trump said India has promised to stop buying Russian oil and he would get China to follow suit. Bid to politicize IPS official death case inappropriate from Gurugram. Union Urban Affairs Minister Nalal on Thursday termed inappropriate the attempt to politicize and give caste color to the alleged death by suicide of Haryana IPS official Vahipuran Kumar on October 7. Bengal SIR on delegation beats CEO chief changes from Kolkata. A delegation of the West Bengal Congress visited the official of the state CEO on Thursday and submitted issued a memorandum of demands for modification of the process of the impending SIR of electoral rolls. No proposal yet. MVA says Kal from Mumbai with murmurs of differences emerging within the MPA over the possible inclusion of the amendments. Maharashtra Congress President Harshvardhan Sparkle, Harshvardhan Sarkar on Thursday said no discussion has taken place in that regard. Supreme Court's confidence EC will reveal Bihar voter data refuses order. From New Delhi, the Supreme Court on Thursday declined to issue a specific direction to the Election Commission to publish the individual details of voters added or deleted from the final electoral roll in Bihar after the special intensive revision. It had no doubt that the whole body would ultimately discharge its responsibilities, the court said. The EC declared that it would publish everything only after the deadline for nomination ends on October 20 and also objected to having this assurance recorded in an order. We have no doubt that they know their responsibility after doing the deletions and additions which are bound to be there, they are bound to publish it. It is an ongoing exercise which is yet to finally culminate into a final list. Justice Suryakant heading the bench with Justice Joy Mallya Bagchi observed. Over 21.5 lakh voters were added in the final roll, while 3.66 lakh names were deleted. In addition to the 65 lakh removed in the draft list, appearing for the petitioners, Advocate Prashant Bhushan questioned why the revision process had such a minimal level of transparency. He told the bench that the lakhs of voters had neither been given notice or informed of the reasons for their removal. The ECI is saying that they have informed them. How can these claims be verified? The only way to do this is to put on the list of additions and deletions on the website so that people can check Mr. Bhushan submitted. Message from Justice Srikanth. We have no doubt that they know their responsibility. After doing the deletions and additions which are bound to be there, they are bound to publish it. Supreme Court wouldn't lift High Court stay on 42% OBC quota in Telangana civic elections from New Delhi. The Supreme Court on Thursday declined to interfere with the Telangana High Court order that had stayed two government orders enhancing the reservation for other backward classes in municipalities and panchayats to 42%. A bench of Justices Vikram Nath and Sandeep Mehta declined to stay the High Court's interim order, observing that it could not take a view inconsistent with Constitution bench rulings that have fixed a 50% ceiling on total reservations in local body election. However, it said that local body elections could proceed without the proposed hike in OBC quotas. You may continue with your election, states appeal dismissed. This will not prevent the High Court from deciding the matter on its own merits. The bench told the state the Telangana government had approached the Supreme Court challenging the High Court's October 9 order, which halted its move to raise the OBC quota in local bodies. The High Court had found that the proposed increase would push the total reservation, including 15% for scheduled caste and 10% for scheduled tribes. Chatterjee Gupta stand takes Bengal into a position of strength on day 2. The left-right combination puts on 156 runs for the fifth wicket to steer the home side out of tricky situation. Bora played the career best for from Kolkata. Bengal roared on Sudeep Chatterjee and Sumanta Gupta responsible half centuries to secure the first innings played against Uttarakhand on the second day of the Ranji Trophy Group C match at the Eden Garden here on Thursday, resuming on 8 for 1. Bengal scored 274 for 6 to earn a crucial 61 run lead. When the day's play ended with the fall of Vishal Bhatti, Bengal lost Sudeep Gharani early as Devendra Bora had him caught behind. Chatterjee and Anushtup Mazumdar added 43 runs before the later was adjusted leg before off Bora. Vice captain Abhishek Porel spoiled his good start by pulling Avneet Sudha to mid-wicket on the stroke of lunch. On a two-page pitch with low bounce, the left-right pair of Chatterjee and Gupta showed intent and patience to build an important 156 run stand to steer Bengal out of a tricky situation and put it in position of strength, playing the anchor's role for 6 hours and 41 minutes. Chatterjee gathered runs, especially with a strike rate of 37.12. The left-handers prioritized singles, but he also played handsome drives, cuts, and flicks to get his boundaries. Gupta rotated the strike well, even though he rarely got his runs in front of the stumps. Most of his first come, most of his first came on the offside. The all-important fifth wicket stand helped Bengal surpass Uttarakhand's 213 early in the final session with Chatterjee moving into the 90s. The action became even more dull as Uttarakhand bowlers chose a line that denied the Bengal batters scoring opportunity. After Uttarakhand took the new ball, Chatterjee played a poor shot, flicking Bora to find leg boundary. To depart on a note of disappointment, Bora, the most successful touring bowler, hit an ideal length and brought some moment to capture 4 wickets so far and better his previous best. LSG brings in Williamson as strategic advisor. New Zealand batting stalwart Kane Williamson has joined Lucknow Super Giants as a strategic advisor ahead of the IPL's next edition. LSC owner Sanjeev Goenka confirmed Williamson's appointment with a post on X on Thursday. Williamson has been associated with LSC, particularly in Durban team in the SA20 League. Real Kashmir withdraws from Super Cup. One league team, Real Kashmir FC, has withdrawn from the upcoming Super Cup due to a delay in procuring visas for its foreign players. The club said on Thursday the Snow Leopards have been replaced by Demo FC for the tournament that is scheduled to begin in Goa from October 25. Australia's swimming star Titmus calls it quits at 25 for time Olympic gold medalist Arian Titmus announced her immediate retirement from swimming on Thursday, calling it a really tough decision. The 25-year-old Australian had been on an extended break since Paris Olympics. Message from our present Prime Minister Modi ji, हरियाणा की डबल इंजन सरकार विश्व स्तरीय बुनियादी ढांचे के निर्माण के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। विकसित भारत बनाने के लिए हरियाणा का विकसित होना बहुत जरूरी है। साल घड़ा कमाल 11 साल तरक्की बेमिसाल जन विश्वास जन विकास ग्लोरियस 1 year October 17, 2075 time 10 a.m. in the Dhanush Auditorium, Sector 5, Panchkula. Chief Guest Shri Narsingh Saini, Chief Minister Haryana. On this occasion, fund distribution to urban local bodies and Panchayati Raj institutions, allotment leader distribution under Mukhyamantri Gramin Awas Yojana 2.0, distribution of provisional possession letters under Mukhyamantri Shahri Vikas Yojana, Shahri Awas Yojana. Event will also be organized in each district of Haryana. You are cordially invited. Information, Public Relations and Language Department, Haryana. I probably didn't expect to get that much spin faces from Visakhapatnam. 2 wickets for Maidans and extracting maximum turn from a flat surface to finish with an economy rate of 1.18. Al-Naking put in a star turn with a ball to help restrict Bangladesh to a below par total, one that Australia chased down with ease on Thursday night. Sri Lanka meets Proteas needs a win to stay alone. From Colombo, the numbers suggest South Africa holds a clear advantage heading into Friday's Women's ODI World Cup 2025 clash against Sri Lanka, leading the head-to-head 16 to 6. But the recent record tells a different story. On the last 5 encounters, both sides have won to each with one washout. The last two meetings, both at the Al Prem Prasad Stadium here, saw the Proteas and the Lankans trade commanding victories. The home side will be hoping for kinder weather in its fifth league game. Still chasing an elusive first win, Kohli Rohit sweat it out during teams trailing in Perth from Perth. Serious stars, Virat, serious stars, Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma hit the ground running soon after their arrival here and spent a considerable time in the nets during the Indian team's first training session ahead of the ODI series against Australia beginning here on Sunday. Both batted for close to 30 minutes in the nets. Their participation in the 2027 World Cup is also not a given with a lot depending on their form and fitness at the time. The team also has a training session lined up on Friday and Saturday. Apart from Kohli, Rohit and Gill, the others to land here after a delayed flight were KL Rahul, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Ashdev Seth, Harshit Rana and Nitish Kumar Reddy along with some members of the support staff, head coach Gambhir, Kuldeep Yadav, Axel Patel and the rest of the speed staff joined them later in the day on Wednesday. The series will begin here on Sunday before moving to Adelaide October 23 and Sydney October 25. It will be followed by a 5-match T20 International Series starting October 29. Abhishek Smriti bagged ICC's Player of the Month awards from Dubai. India openers Abhishek Sharma and Smriti Mandana on Thursday won the ICC Player of the Month awards for September following their superlative performance in the Asia Cup and Women's ODI series against Australia respectively. Abhishek accumulated 314 runs in 7 matches during the period at an average of 44.85 and an outstanding strike rate of 200. Smriti was outstanding in the home ODI series against Australia scoring 58,117 and 125 in the three matches. King, Halley, and Litchfield make it a no contest. Australia entered the semi-finals. The leg spinner ties down the Bangladesh batters in knots before the openers remain unseparated in a modest chase of 199. Shobna fights hard with an unbeaten 66 while Rabia chips in with 44 for the Tigresses. From Vishakhapatnam, it was a tale of two halves, but with a predictable ending for Australia as it flew past Bangladesh in a 10-wicket win at the ICA VDCA Stadium here on Thursday, the, thereby becoming the first side to seal a semi-final spot in the Women's ODI World Cup. Iran lines generous extras and an uncharacteristically sloppy fielding helped Bangladesh half and fast its way to 198 for 9 with Phoebe Litchfield and Alicia Healy featuring in the cafe's real, but the pair compensated in the best way possible, nullifying a usually Willy Bangladeshi bowling unit's son Marufa actor and Naida actor with expert precision. After a slow start, Phoebe picked two boundaries of Fariha Darishna to set the course for the rest of the innings. Healy soon joined the party and the two helped Australia put up 78 runs by the end of the power play and enter triple figures in 13.5 overs, its quickest this campaign. The end was quick for Bangladesh thanks to exhibition hitting from the duo, Healy registering her second consecutive turn this tournament while Litchfield ticket of her eighth ODI half century along the way. Earlier, Bangladesh opposed a bad placing fifth once again in its ability to mount a stubborn defense. Missed opportunity. Litchfield gave Rabia header and early reprieve, while Healy's spin denied Darcy Brown an early celebration despite Fargana Goku falling in the ninth over. Bangladesh's calculated approach handed C of the power play with a scoreboard reading 37 for 1, its best showing in the tournament. Rubia chose to live life on the edge and luck favored her with the edge running away to the fence. She fell short of a deserved 50, holding out to Talia and Sigrat at mid-on. Shamin Charmin soon followed suit similarly. Alcana King, managing close to 4.5 degrees of turn, claimed the prized scalps of Nigar Sultana and Shorna Akhtar, the later failing to replicate her pyrotechnics from the previous game. Shobhana mostly fought hard with a half century to drag Bangladesh to a workable score, but it was always going to be a cakewalk for the dominant Aussies, who sealed the win with 25.1 overs to spare. Trial by space made Shobna a shining light from Chennai. On May 14, 2018, a 16-year-old Shobna mostly became Bangladesh's fourth youngest debutant in women's ODIs. It was a trial by pace as the pace South Africa's Arizona Cap and Shannon Ismail. Shobna, first Bangladesh woman to score ODI 50 against Australia. We don't undermine any team, try our best, win every game. Lakshya Satvik move into the Denmark Open finals. Patna Pirates holds off a fighting Bengaluru Bulls in a thriller. Lowry in lead after flawless opening round from New Delhi. Shan Lowry smile did not fade through the first round and the Ishmael had reason to be beaming after a bogey-free round that saw him finish with an 8 under 64 for the sole lead after the opening day, who has actually played at the venue albeit 15 years back, had 8 birdies in his round to finish one shot ahead of Kata Nakajima. The Japanese also had 8 birdies, including one on the notorious par 49, the toughest hole on the day with 43 bogeys, 48 par scores, and just 6 birdies, but also dropped a shot on the sixth. Tanvi, Unnati, and Venana, the two in quarterfinals from Guwahati. Tanvi Sharma had a Tanvi Sharma had a backhand return and stepped forward only to watch Sun Lee Yuan lift the shuttle and send it past the Indian towards the end of the second game. It was the only moment where the home favorite was caught off guard in an otherwise clinical 15 to 8 25 victory in the round of 16 of the World Junior Badminton Championship here on Thursday. Dhaka prosecution demands death penalty for Hasina. From Dhaka, Bangladesh prosecution Bangladesh prosecution lawyers demanded on Thursday that fugitive Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina receive the death penalty in her trial for crime against humanity. MS Hasina has defied court orders to return from India, where she left to last year to face charges of ordering a deadly crackdown in a failed attempt to crush a student-led uprising. Up to 1,400 people were killed in the clashes between July and August 2024. According to the United Nations, we demand the highest punishment for her. Chief Prosecutor Tazul Islam told press person outside court for a single murder. One death penalty is the rule for 1,400 murders. She should be sentenced 1,400 times, but since that is not humanly possible, we demand at least one. She is being tried in absentia. Embattled French PM Le Cornu survives a vote of no confidence in Parliament from Paris. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu survived a vote of no confidence on Thursday that could have toppled his fragile new government and plunged France deeper into political chaos. The National Assembly vote clears the way for the embattled Mr. Lecornu to pursue what could be an even greater challenge, getting a 2026 budget for the European Union's second largest economy through Parliament's powerful but bitterly divided lower house before the end of the year. Mr. Lacone's survival also spared any immediate need for President Emmanuel Macron to again dissolve the National Assembly and call snap legislative election, a hazardous option that the French leader had signaled he might take if Mr. Macron fell. A close ally of the French president faced two no confidence motion filed by Mr. Macron. Fiercest opponents, the hard-left France Unboard Party and Marine Le Pen of the far-right National Rally and allies in Parliament. The 577-seat chamber voted on the France Unboard motion first and it fell short with 271 lawmakers supporting it. It had needed a majority of 289 votes succeed. Lawmakers are now voting on a Day and the second motion. Dhaka prosecution demands death penalty for Hasina from Dhaka. China defends buying Russian oil. Islam US for unilateral link from Beijing. China said on Thursday that its purchases of Russian oil were legitimate and declaration. Unilateral bullying measured by the United States as a trade row between the two countries continues to intensify. Mr. Trump said on Wednesday that Prime Minister Modi had promised him New Delhi would stop buying Russian oil and that he would get China to follow suit. Mr. Trump has accused Mr. Trump had accused both China and India of funding the 3-year Ukraine war through the purchases and has also demanded that European allies immediately stop buying oil from Russia. Asked about Mr. Trump's intention to pressure China, Beijing's foreign minister defended its normal, legitimate economic trade and energy cooperation with countries around the world, including Russia. Ceasefire halts deadly fighting on Afghanistan-Pakistan border. The 48-hour ceasefire was aimed at allowing time to find a positive solution through constructive dialogue. According to Islamabad, shops reopen in Spin Boldak as residents return home. From Spin Boldak, a ceasefire along the frontier between Afghanistan and Pakistan was holding on Thursday. Officials on both sides shared. After dozens of troops and civilians were killed in cross-border clashes in Spain, in Spain Boldak, a focal point of recent clashes on the Afghan side, and AFP journalists saw shops reopening and residents returning to homes they had fled during the fighting. The 48-hour ceasefire was aimed at allowing time to find a positive solution through constructive dialogue. According to Islamabad, Pakistan is facing a resurgence of attacks against its security forces on its border with Afghanistan, led by the Pakistani Taliban and its affiliates. 40 civilians were killed and 170 others wounded on Wednesday, according to Spin Baltek's Director of Public Health, Karimullah Jubair Agha. The UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, earlier reported at least 18 civilians killed and more than 350 wounded in the violence. Hundreds of residents and Taliban officials attended the funeral of 7 members of the same family in the Spin Boldak. Pakistan officials on the northern and southern border with Afghanistan said on Thursday that no violence was reported overnight and the ceasefire remains in effect. A senior security official in Peshawar shared. Additional paramilitary troops have been deployed to counter potential militant activity that could jeopardize the ceasefire. Shortly before the truce was announced, blasts were reported in the capital, Kabul, and the southern province of Kandahar, province where the Afghan Taliban's shadowing supreme leader lives. At least 5 people were killed and 35 wounded in Wednesday's explosion in Kabul. United Nations Rights Chief Volker Turk welcomed the ceasefire and appealed to both parties to prevent any further harm to civilians and commit to a lasting ceasefire. Netanyahu was to recover remains of Gaza hostages from Jerusalem. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday that he was determined to ensure that Hamas hands back the remains of hostages still in Gaza, adding that the fight is not over yet. Under a ceasefire agreement spearheaded by US President Donald Trump, Hamas returned the last 20 surviving hostages to Israel and said it had handed back all the bodies of the deceased captives that it could access. The ceasefire also saw the war sparked by Hamas's unprecedented October 7, 2023 attack on Israel grind to a halt after 2 years of agony for the families of hostages and bombardment and hunger in Gaza. The remains of 19 hostages are still unaccounted for, with Hamas saying it would need specialist recovery equipment to retrieve the rest from the dunes of Gaza. Fights not over at a state ceremony to mark the second anniversary at a state ceremony to mark the second anniversary of the 2007 attack. Mr. Netanyahu said Israel was determined to secure the return of all hostages. The fight is not over yet, but one thing is clear: whoever lays a hand on us knows they will pay a very heavy price, he said. Earlier, an Israel group campaigning for the return of the hostages demanded that the government delay implementing the next stages of the truce if Hamas fails to return the remaining captives' bodies, according to Mr. Trump's 20-point plan for Gaza. The next phases of the truce should include the disarming of Hamas, the offer of amnesty to Hamas leaders who decommission their weapons and establishing the governance of post-war Gaza. Israel's defense minister Israel Katz on Wednesday threatened to resume fighting Hamas does not if Hamas does not honor the terms of the agreement. Military takeover in Madagascar was not a coup, insists new leader from Antananarivo from Washington. Trump confirms CIA action against Venezuela. Maduro criticizes move. US President Donald Trump indicated on Wednesday he had authorized covert CIA action against Venezuela. Venezuela leader Nicolas Maduro condemned the U.S. coup attempts and orders military drills after a U.S. strike, deepening tension over alleged narco-terrorist operation. Military takeover in Madagascar was not a coup, insists new leader Colonel Michael Randhiniana on Thursday insisted Madagascar's military takeover was not a coup after ousted President Andre. Ex-US embassy guard in Norway convicted of spying for Russia, Iran. A Norwegian court sentenced a 28-year-old former US embassy security guard to 3 years and 7 months for spying for Russia and Iran. He shared embassy floor plans and staff details for 10,000 euros from Russian intelligence and 0.17 Bitcoin from Iranian intelligence. He denied the charge of aggravated espionage. From Berlin, Germany, working on plan against Russian hybrid threats, says Merz. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on Thursday announced a comprehensive action plan to counter Russia's hybrid warfare, including cyber attacks, espionage, and disinformation. Mr. Merz also accused Moscow of trying to destabilize Europe and criticize the Russia-friendly AfD party. Arunachal Indigenous Faith Group pushes for implementation of Act to arrest association from Guwahati. The Arunachal Christian Forum said the Discriminatory and Divisive Act unfairly targets them from Guwahati, and an organization of indigenous faith adherents in Arunachal Pradesh has called for a mass rally on October 18 for the implementation of a law pursued to arrest religious conversions. Christians in the state are opposed to the Arunachal Pradesh Freedom of Religion Act of 1978, which the Indigenous Faith and Cultural Society of Arunachal Pradesh (IFCSAP) insists is not against any religion. Speaking, speaking, seeking the implementation of the act that has been in the cold storage for more than 40 decades. Member of the IFCSAP had the Himachal Pradesh Indigenous Affairs Council said Chief Minister Prema Khandu must finish what Prem Khandu began on 1978. Prem Khandu refers to Prem Khandu Tangan, the first Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, who added who headed the Janata Party government for a tad more than 4 years from August 1975. The act is not against any religion. It is meant to protect all religions and preserve the indigenous culture in the state. IFCSAP President Avinumi shared. Other IFC-SAP leaders insist that neither the Bharatiya Janata Party nor the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh were behind the October 18 rally. They said it was purely an initiative of the people belonging to indigenous faiths such as Dhoni, Polo and Praha to safeguard their roots. The Arunachal Christian form, however, believe but discriminatory and divisive and unfairly targets them. Rally organized. Members of this form organized a massive rally in February after the Chief Minister shared a directive from the Guwahati High Court in the Guwahati High Court negotiated its implementation in September 2024. The court asked the state government to finalize the Act's draft rules within 6 months. The government is yet to come out with the rules. The Freedom of Religion Act has provisions for imprisonment and fines for those found guilty of converting people by force, inducement, or fraud. Local faiths will die. Members of the IFCS safely shared that tribal people were increasingly converting to other religions, and without the act in place, the indigenous faiths would soon become extinct. According to the indigenous faith body, the number of Christians jumped from less than 1% in 1971 to more than 30% in 2011. During the same period, the population of those following indigenous faiths and other religions dipped from more than 63% to about 36%. Restoration of statehood will resolve most of J&K's problems over after 1 year in office from Srinagar. Most of Jammu and Kashmir's problems will be resolved with the restoration of statehood, said Chief Minister Umar Abdullah on Thursday. The first anniversary of the national conference led government in the Union Territory. We were given a three-step roadmap to statehood. Delimitation will be followed by elections and then statehood. I appeal to Prime Minister Modi to fulfill the promise made to the people of J&K in Parliament and before the Supreme Court. Most of J&K's problems will be resolved with statehood status, Mr. Abdullah said while addressing media person in Jammu. The Chief Minister also ruled out any government formation in the BJP to restore statehood. If statehood is not restored because the BJP is not in power in J&K, then we have to do without statehood for the next 4 years, he said. Mr. Abdullah also defended the slow pace in fulfilling the promises made in the poll manifesto. My government should be judged at the end of the term. At the end of the term, we have been addressing the issues of people since we took over. The issue of daily wages remained a top priority. He also announced the resumption of the Darbar move on annual practice of shifting capitals between Srinagar and Jammu introduced in 1872 by Maharaja Gulab Singh, which was discontinued by the Lieutenant Governor's administration in 2021. The bar moved clear. The cabinet has already cleared the proposal to bring back the Darbar move. The file was forwarded to the Lieutenant Governor who has given approval. The practice will resume shortly, he said. On the upcoming Rajya Sabha polls, Mr. Abdullah said NC President Farooq Abdullah reached out to the People's Democratic Party (PDP), which has three members in the assembly. However, PDP Chief Mehbooba Mufti said she would extend support if the bills introduced by the opposition are passed. No MNS joining NVA proposal yet. Sakal Raut denies writing to come against state party chief from Mumbai, with murmurs of differences emerging within the Mahavikas Aghadi over the possible inclusion of the Maharashtra Navnirman Sena State Congress Chief Harshvardhan Sarkar on Thursday said no discussion has taken place in that regard. Therefore, there is no question of anybody complaining when there has been no discussion. Mr. Sarkar said, reacting to reports that he had gone to New Delhi to complain about the inclusion of the Raj Thakre's led party and that Shiv Sena UBT leader Sanjay Raut had written a letter to the Congress leadership against him. Later in the day, Mr. Raut also clarified that he had not written any letter. Raj Thakre had joined a delegation of opposition parties to meet the election commission officials. When I initially spoke to Harshvardhan Sapkar, he said he will have to speak with the central leadership to take a call on the issue. That is the system in Congress. They need to take permission from the central leadership. They can't take any calls here. That there is no question of complaining against him, Mr. Lord told the Hindu, Mr. Sapkal, who was not a part of the delegation of opposition party. Meeting the election commission officials said I had gone to Delhi to attend a meeting with the senior party leaders. It was already decided. There is no question of complaining in this. India bloc's call when asked about the possibility of Mr. Thackeray's inclusion in the MBA, he said the delegation which had gone to meet the election commission had nothing to do with the alliance. There is no proposals as yet from MNS. It will be incorrect to speak about it if anyone has to be included in the India bloc. The decision will be taken by members of the India bloc, he said. Dalit men assaulted, urinated upon him, MP for opposing mining from Bhopal. Four men have been booked in Madhya Pradesh's Katni after a Dalit man accused them of assaulting him, urinating on him, and raising castiest slurs following an altercation about construction work of a Gram Panchayat office. Police said on Thursday. According to police, the Alice incident took place on October 13 in Matwada village under Baharudigan police station limits. After an argument broke out between Rajkumar Chaudhary and the local Sarpanch village head over the use of gravel in the construction. Katni, additional superintendent of police, additional SP, Santosh Daharia, told the Hindu that based on Mr. Chaudhary's complaint, a case has been lodged under provisions of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and the SC or ST Prevention of Atrocities Act against the Sarpanch and the three others. They have been identified as Ravanus Pandey, Ram Bihari Pandey, Pawan Pandey, and Satish Pandey. Mr. Daharia said that Mr. Chaudhary has alleged that the gravel used in the construction was being illegally mined from near his agriculture field. From last, he has alleged that when he went to object to the mining, he was assaulted and urinated upon. We have lost a probe and are gathering evidence from other locals who were present at the scene as the altercation as the altercation took as the altercation took place in public view, he said, adding the efforts are on to nab the four accused. Kerala Minister alleged the school at center of hijab controversy seeking to politicize matter from Trivandrum. Kerala's General Education Minister V. Shivan Putti on Thursday asked the management of St. Rita's Public School at Kaluruthi in Kochi at the center of a hijab controversy to refrain from making statements against the government in connection with the issue. He alleged that there was a planned bid by the school management to criticize the left Democratic Front government despite the matter being settled. There was no disagreement between the government and the school management over the dress code, he clarified. The controversy began after the church-run school in Kochi reportedly objected to a student wearing a hijab, citing its dress code policy. The school then declared a two-day holiday for students earlier this week. It is the government's duty to investigate a complaint on the basis of the preliminary report submitted by the Ernakulam, Deputy Director of Education, an explanation had been sought from the school authorities. It was a legal measure, however, what followed was a deliberate bid to politicize the issue, the minister shared. The minister said the government would take all legal measures necessary in the matter and not allow any attempt by the Congress or anyone else to create a political or communal divide in the education sector in the state. He asked those concerned to desist from provocative moves that disrupted the peaceful atmosphere in the school. Right to frame rules earlier, the school management had said it will approach the Kerala High Court against the VDE report that had alleged lapses on the part of the institution. Principal Sri Harilan Lina LB had cited a decision by the same court in 2018 in a similar case that school management had the right to frame the rules and regulations related to school uniform. The school resumed functioning on Wednesday. Mahakal Temple to come up in Siliguri, says West Bengal CM. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee on Thursday announced construction of a Mahakal temple at Siliguri in the state's Darjeeling district. This is the third major project of temple constructing undertaken by the state government after Jagannath Temple in Digha and Durga Angan at Rajarhat. The announcement of construction of a third temple in the span of a year assumes significance that it was with the soft Hindutva push of West Bengal's ruling party. Political observers say that the move is an attempt to counter the aggressive Hindutva stance of the BJP. Ars Rajendra Gupta elected unopposed to Waris from Punjab. Industrialist and Aam Aadmi Party candidate Rajendra Gupta was elected unopposed to the Rajya Sabha from Punjab on Thursday, the last day for withdrawing nomination. Officials said AAP, which nominated Mr. Gupta as its candidate for the October 24 Rajya Sabha by poll, enjoyed an overwhelming majority with 93 members in the 117 member assembly. The seat fell vacant after Sanjeev Arora stepped down from the upper house following his election to the state assembly. Mr. Arora, whose term was to end on April 9, 2028, is presently serving as a minister in the Punjab cabinet. Bid to politicize, give caste color to IPS officer death case inappropriate, Lal says. Justice will be delivered to what families, especially will central to the incident, says Union Minister after meeting in of ASI Sandeep Kumar Lathar. Last rites performed at Julana Archi postmortem from Gurugram. Union Urban Affairs Minister Manohar Lal on Thursday termed inappropriate the attempt to politicize and gave caste color to the alleged death by suicide of Haryana IPS officer Y. Kiran Kumar at his residence in Chandigarh on October 7. The 52-year-old officer was serving as the Inspector General of Police at the Police Training Center in Sonaria, Rohtak, had accused 8 senior police officers of blatant caste-based discrimination, targeted mental harassment, public humiliation, and atrocities in the north. Mr. Lal made the comments during an intervention with media persons at the Postgraduate Institute of Medical Science, Rohtak, where he met the family members of Assistant Sub Inspector of Haryana Police Sandeep Kumar Lathar, who ended his life on October 14 after accusing the deceased IPS officer and his family of corruption in a veteran video. Lathar posted in Rohtak cyber cell had shot himself dead with his service revolver in Dator village. The police said, terming both incidents very unfortunate. The union minister said they should not have happened, but now it is time to handle the situation well. Unfortunately, some political leaders tries to politicize the first incident and an attempt was made to give it a scarlet color which was not appropriate. Alluding to corruption, Mr. Lal shed a social evil voice. No doubt the central issue in both incidents, he added that it was a matter of investigation and a legal issue and justice would be delivered to both families. The Union Minister also made an appeal to leading people of society and the two families to not make the two incidents about issues of caste and communities and prevent their politicizing. On compensation given to Lalchand's family, Mr. Lal said they had sought to a job for his wife and Haryana Chief Minister Narsingh and agreed to the demand. He added that the state government would take care of the education of the policeman's children. Mr. Lal also posted on his X account about meeting the bereaved family following the post-mortem. The last rites of the latter were performed at his native town Julana in the afternoon in the presence of villagers, Haryana's acting DGP officing and politicians across party lines. Case registered and abatement to suicide case has been registered in connection with the death of Latha based on the note and video he left behind, the Haryana police said on Thursday. Raised fisherman issue with Sri Lankan PM, Tamil Nadu CM Ajit Modi from Chennai. In view of Sri Lankan Prime Minister Harini Amra Surya's 3-day visit to India, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin on Thursday wrote to Prime Minister Narendra Modi urging him to raise concerns with his Sri Lankan counterpart regarding the challenges faced by Indian fishermen in the Park Bay and seek a lasting solution through sustained diplomatic efforts. In his letter, Mr. Stalin said the fishing community of Tamil Nadu continued to face significant hardship due to recurring harassment, attacks, and arrests by the Sri Lankan Navy. Since 2021, a total of 14,082 fishermen and 198 fishing boats have been apprehended, causing distress and economic losses to the community. He said the Tamil Nadu government had consistently sought the intervention of the center to address these issues through diplomatic channels. He had raised the matter with the Prime Minister's office on 11 occasions and had made 72 representations to the Minister for External Affairs. However, such incidents continued unabated. He added, he argued Mr. Modi to discuss with the Sri Lankan Prime Minister the retrieval of the Kachtivu Island, the immediate release of fishermen and their board steps to address incidents of violence and theft at sea, the impact of the nationalization of the seized fishing boats and the revitalization of the joint working group on fisheries. Kastivu issue, Mr. Stalin said Tamil Nadu fishermen had traditionally fished in the waters surrounding Kastivu, which was historically a part of India. Ownership of Ishland was transferred by the Union government to Sri Lanka without obtaining the state government's consent and without following due process decision consistently opposed by the Tamil Nadu Assembly since 1974. India active talks for trade pact with US, EU, Oman, says from New Delhi. India has implemented a number of free trade agreements with developed nations and is in active dialogue for such pacts with nations including the US, Oman, and the EU Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal shared. India has implemented trade pacts with Australia, the UAE, and EFTA bloc. It has also signed an agreement with the UK. We have done free trade agreements (FTAs) with many developed countries in the last 3 years. We are in active dialogue with the US, EU, Chile, Peru, New Swaziland, and Oman. The minister told reporters here it clearly shows that India is a favored and preferred destination both for investment and for bilateral trade, he added. Back with Brazil. Mr. Goyal also said with Brazil also he has discussed expanding preferential trade agreement from its current level so that we can in the future penetrate the South American market in a bigger way. The Indian official team is in Washington now to hold trade talks with US counterparts. The team will be there till October 17 in February. Leaders of India and the US asked the officials to negotiate a bilateral trade agreement. They fixed a deadline to conclude the first tranche of the pact by the fall October to November of 2025. Infosys Q2 net rises 13.2% to 7,364 crore rupees at 8,203 staff. From New Delhi, Infosys Limited reported its second quarter net profit rose 13.2% year on year to 7,364 crore rupees, while total revenue climbed 8.6% to 44,490 crore rupees. Wipro Q2 net climbs it at to 3,246 crore rupees when Bengaluru Wipro Limited posted Q2 net profit of 3,246 crore rupees for September ended quarter a marginal growth from 3,208 crore rupees reported in the same period a year ago. LTI mandatory Q2 net profit revenue grew over 10% from Bengaluru. Blue Energy unveiled a heavy duty truck from Mumbai. Blue Energy Motors, a green truck manufacturer, introduced its electric heavy-duty truck equipped with battery swapping technology. The vehicle was unveiled by Maharashtra CM Devendra Fadnavis at the firm's 10,000 trucks per annum production facility at Chakan in Pune. The CM also inaugurated India's first election corridor from Mumbai Pune. This corridor is the first step in the plan to electrify all major national highway corridors over the next 3 years. The firms and BEM had signed an MOU with the Maharashtra government to set up a new unit with a capacity of 30,000 trucks at an investment of 3,500 crore rupees. LIC unveils two plans. Life Insurance Corporation of India has introduced two plans, Jan Suraksha and Bima Lakshmi, offering guaranteed addition and financial protection features for diverse customer segments. Commerce Ministry relaxes compliances for exporters. From New Delhi, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry has initiated a number of ease of doing business compliance measures over the last month to help domestic businesses while also protecting them from dumping from abroad to launching anti-dumping investigation on at least 15 product lines. However, the export promotion mission announced in Budget 2025 is yet to be finalized as several approvals are still pending. Officials are confident of significant headway. Ola Electric foray Ola Electric forays into battery energy storage. From Bangalore, Ola Electric on Thursday announced its foray into the battery energy storage system market, a segment that is expected to cross 3 lakh crore rupees in value by 2030 from 1 lakh crore rupees currently. The EV manufacturer has launched Ola Shakti, its portable battery energy storage system solution for home, farm, and also businesses. Tea exports increased 2.2% between January and August. Tea exports increased marginally by 2.2% during the 8-month period of January to August 2025 at 174.42 billion kilogram as against 170.63 billion kilogram in the year earlier period. According to T-Board data, exports from North India during the period stood at 1113.14 million kilogram from 99.14 million kilogram in the year earlier. From South India, the quantity of exports during the first 8 months of 2025 stood at 61.28 million kilogram as compared with 71.49 million kilogram during the same period of 2024. LIC stake in Dr. Reddy's lost 10%, 1.71 crore shares acquired state-owned Life Insurance Corporation of India. Acquires more than 1.71 crore shares in Dr. Reddy's Laboratories since June, taking its stock in the generic drug maker to more than 10%. One of the largest institutional investors in the country, LIC raised its holding from 8.21% in early June to 26% as on October 15. A filing by Dr. Reddy's on Thursday showed LIC acquired Indian Overseas Bank Q2 net profit surges 58% to 1,226 crore rupees. Indian Overseas Bank has posted a 57.79% jump in net profit to 1,226 crore rupees for the second quarter ended September 30. Next, formal round of India EU FTA talks not set, says Agrawal. Issues pertaining to market access, regulatory cooperation, agricultural sensitivities need constant discussion before formal negotiations from New Delhi. Negotiations on the free trade agreement between India and the European Union are facing issues relating to market access, regulatory cooperation, and agricultural sensitivities. Separately, Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agrawal said that the next formal round of negotiation has not been announced as the nature of these issues are such that they require constant discussion rather than waiting for a formal round. The 14th and latest round of negotiation was held on October 6 to 10 in Brussels. Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal and his recent counterparts in Europe have regularly reiterated their commitment to completing negotiations on the trade deal. By the end of this calendar year, India-EU FTA negotiations are progressing very well. Mr. Roy said at a press conference, we are in the last leg of negotiation. The last was the most arduous leg of negotiations because the toughest things are decided at the end. We are in that stage of negotiations. The last rounds of real progress. Mr. Agarwal added that the teams were both sides would continue interacting with each other to work out their differences. Right now, we have not settled on the next round of official negotiations because we feel there are issues across areas that we need to resolve on a continuous basis, he said. Indian iron and steel exporters face the highest CBAM levy from New Delhi. Indian exporters of iron and steel EU may have to pay about 301 billion pounds, approximately 3,000 crore rupees in carbon border adjustment mechanism fees, the highest among all countries exporting similar products to the EU. An analysis by European non-profit think tank Sandberg has found CBM is levy that European importers must pay if they buy products from countries whose production emits more carbon dioxide per ton than equivalent goods manufactured within the EU. An online calculator developed by Sandberg made public on Thursday estimates that Russia will face the next highest CBM charges, 250 million pounds, followed by Ukraine, 198 million pounds, and China, 194 million pounds. The analysis further indicates that India's total CBM liability covering exports of aluminium and cement in addition to iron and steel stands at about 330 billion pounds or roughly 1.05% of the value of all traded goods. However, the study also suggests that India exporters could earn higher revenues estimated at $10 billion if they shift to cleaner technologies, resulting in a net cost reduction of around $180 billion. India has consistently opposed the CBM with industry bodies describing it as a non-tariff barrier. Commerce Ministry used to have said in July that if the EU implemented the CBM, India would retaliate with taxes of its own. Google's new AI finds promising approach for cancer treatment. From New Delhi, opening a portal to a new approach to drug discovery. Google unveiled a family of artificial intelligence tools that proposed a drug combination for detecting cancer that human experts did not know about, which seemed effective in laboratory conditions. This is a rare instance of AI being used in the process of scientific discovery to design practical drug candidates. The cell 2 sentences, the cell 2 sentence scale 27B C2S scale is a 27 billion parameter foundation model designed to understand the language of individual cells. This announcement marks a milestone for AI and science. Shekoufe Azizi and Brian Peruzzi, staff scientists at Google DeepMind and Google Research, respectively, said in a blog post adding C2S scale generated a novel hypothesis about cancer cellular behavior, and we have since confirmed its prediction with experimental validation in living cells. This discovery reveals a promising new pathway for developing therapies to fight cancer. Their research paper with the scientific details was made available for public scrutiny at Rio Archive, a repository of preprints. The problem that researchers set out to solve was how to detect an emerging term emerging tumor when the immune system itself was unaware of it. A strategy was to force such nascent tumors to display immune triggering signals through a process called antigen presentation. The C2S scale 27B model was given a task find a drug that boosts immune signals only if low levels of interferon are present. Interferons are proteins produced by the body and act as frontline defenders against infection and tumor. This is a situation that exists where a tumor is likely secretly growing while avoiding the body's natural threat detection system. Small AI or large language models were unable to learn this by exposing the 27 billion parameter model to two large data sets, real world patient samples with tumor immune interactions plus low level inferno signaling and cell line data with no immune contact, the artist trod upon inside. They first simulated the effect of over 4,000 drugs and noted how many of them worked in situations where interferon levels were low even as the tumors grew. Out of the many drug candidates highlighted by the model, a fraction 10% to 30% of drug hits are already known in prior literature, While the remaining guns were surprising hits with no prior known link, the model zeroed in a chemical drug called silmitasarime that only seemed to boost the immune system when it suspected a tumor. With more preclinical and clinical tests, this discovery may reveal a promising new pathway for developing therapies to fight cancer. Sundar Pai Chai, CEO Google and AI Fabet, posted on X on Thursday. High Court upholds cancellation of forest rights of Chhattisgarh villagers. From New Delhi, the Chhattisgarh High Court has dismissed a petition challenging the cancellation of community forest rights granted to villagers of Bhakbara in the SDO Aran forest, where an Adani Enterprises owned entity is operating the Pasta East and Katibasan coal mines. The ruling, for the first time, addressed the question of whether forest rights granted under the 2006 Forest Rights Act can be revoked or cancelled, given the law does not explicitly provide for any such measure. In an order dated October 8, a single bench of Justice Rakesh Mohan Pandey stated that granting the community forest rights in itself was a mistake that was rectified through the cancellation, concluding that this made the order granting the rights void ab initio. The judgment came on a bench of petition initially filed by the Forest Rights Committee of Chabara Village, a statutory body under the FRA, later joined by civil society organizations and practitioners. The petition, initiated in 2016, saw the Forest Rights Committee withdraw its application. The petitioners submitted that three community forest rights titles were recognized and granted the Ghatbara villages through an order in 2013. In 2016, the district level committee in Surjuga district cancelled these rights, noting they had been erroneously granted as the patch of land fell under mining areas for which diversion of forest was already approved in 2012. In citing its grounds for dismissing the challenge to the cancellation of forest rights, the High Court said that the Rajasthan Rajya Vidyut Upadhyay Utpadan Nigam Limited had completed phase 1 of mining over the past decade and had also received clearance for phase 2 in 2022. 3 years have passed since then, and claims of the residents of the village Ghatbara with regard to individual or community forest rights, if any, can be compensated in terms of money, the court said. The court added that it cannot accept the arguments of the petitioners because the forest diversion was already cleared in 2013. Further, the court noted that the petitioners never challenged any of the initial orders allocating the coal mines or approving forest diversion for them in 2011, 2012, and 2015, even though the petition was filed in 2016. Attack on CCI Gawai. Supreme Court questions against racking up incident from New Delhi. The Supreme Court on Thursday questioned whether further judicial time should be spent on the attempted attack on Chief Justice of India, B.R. Gawai, by an advocate earlier this month, observing that doing so may give more fillip to publicity hungry individuals. The court nevertheless agreed to examine after the Deepavali break whether contempt proceedings should be initiated against the 71-year-old lawyer Rakesh Kishore. The bench of Justice Suryakant and Jayanwala Bagchi met the remarks while hearing a mentioning by senior advocate Vikas Singh, president of the Supreme Court Bar Association, who asked the court to take suo motu cognizance and initiative contempt proceedings against Mr. Kishore for his conduct and his continued lack of remorse. We want to project the angers of the bar, The incident is being glorified on social media, Mr. Singh said. The bench, however, expressed reservations about allowing the matter to gain further traction, let it die a natural death, let it meet its fate with the contempt it deserves, Justice Kant remarked. Not for contempt, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta informed the court that Attorney General R. Venturani had already granted his consent for initiating contempt proceedings, saying the incident had affected the institutional integrity of the court. The bench noted that the Chief Justice had himself shown magnanimity by ignoring the episode and asking others to do the same. The bench further cautioned that reviving the incident might only amplify it and warned that initiating contempt proceedings could create another episode and fuel social media attention. States must set up special prisons for fugitives, Shah says. Fugitives argue against extradition to India, claiming prisons do not meet global standards. India cannot be truly secure until those hiding abroad begin to fear our justice system, says Minister. From New Delhi, states need to construct special prisons for fugitives in line with international standards, Union Home Minister Amit Shah said on Thursday, though he did not agree with the contention that Indian prisoners are not in good condition. He said special prisons were necessary as fugitives often take a plea in foreign courts that they should not be extradited to India as the prisons here do not meet the minimum international standard. Addressing a conference on the extradition of fugitives, challenges and strategies organized by the Central Bureau of Investigation (CBI), the Home Minister said that there is a need to develop coordination mechanism and protocols between the passport issuance process and law enforcement agencies so that passports can be red flagged or cancelled as soon as a red corner notice is issued against the passport holder. The process of seizure of passport or its cancellation should begin as soon as a red corner notice is issued against them so that the movement of fugitives outside the country can be curtailed and they can be brought to India as soon as possible. Mr. Shah said, zero tolerance. He said that a special campaign should be launched to convert the existing blue corner notices into red corner notices, and a dedicated cell for this purpose should be created in every state under the multi-agency center, the CBI and IB Intelligence Bureau, and should jointly establish a special task force to ensure smooth implementation of this entire process. India cannot be truly secure until those in hiding abroad who harm the country's economy, sovereignty, and security begin to fear the Indian justice system. Mr. Shah said a zero tolerance approach must be adopted towards terrorist and economic offenders who harm India's interests from beyond India's borders, the minister said. It is our responsibility to bring all such criminals under the purview of Indian laws and to create a robust mechanism for this purpose, he said. The conference is a concerted effort to ensure the protection of fugitive criminals before Indian courts and provides a roadmap to achieve this, Mr. Shah said. Some of the major topics of the discussion at the conference are cyber technology, financial crimes, tracing the source and flow of funds, simplifying complex extradition processes, bringing fugitives back, creating a database of their geographical location, and using this mechanism through cooperation with international police. The issue of fugitive criminals is linked to the country's sovereignty, economic stability, law and order, and national security. The time has come to ensure a system that adopts a ruthless approach and brings every fugitive before the Indian justice system in a time-bound manner, he said. With the cooperation of the CBI, state must establish a unit dedicated to creating a mechanism to bring back fugitives who have committed crimes and fled the state, Mr. Shah said. On the path from resolution to accomplishment, the government of Haryana had taken 217 public welfare resolutions a year ago. Out of these, 46 resolutions have been successfully completed, while work on the remaining resolutions is progressing steadily. Key resolution women empowerment under Deen Dayal Lado Lakshmi Yojana, financial assistance of 2100 per month to women rupees, 2100 per month, 2100 rupees per month to women. Under the Har Ghar Grahini Yojana, LPG cylinders are being provided to Antyodhya and BPL families for 500 rupees only. Youth empowerment. Within hours of new cabinet formation, Group C government jobs given to 24,000 youth. Around 13.50 lakh youth took the CET exam in July 2025 for Group C post. Scholarship of 60,000 rupees per year from class 6 to 12th, 72,000 rupees per year for graduation, and 96,000 rupees per year for post graduation to every child of martyred soldiers. Law implemented to eradicate the problem of donkey root. Farmers' welfare. A law of 5-year imprisonment to manufacturers and suppliers of adulterated fertilizers, seeds, and pesticides implemented. Procurement of all 24 crops at minimum support price (MSP). Farmers are being paid through DBT within 48 hours for their procured crops. Antyodhya. Free dialysis service for kidney patients in all districts, government hospitals and medical colleges. Land ownership rights given to a family holding land in rural or urban areas for more than 20 years. Under Ayushman Bharat scheme, free treatment of up to 5 lakh rupees to the elderly above 70 years of age. New Dawn, peace in West Asia hinges on resolution of the Palestine issue. While addressing the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, US President Donald Trump declared that the ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel, which he had helped broker, marked the historical dawn of the new Middle East in Sarmal el Sheikh, Egypt. Arab and Muslim leaders joined him in praising his 20-point peace plan, while all sides hailed Mr. Trump's role as a peacemaker. The declaration of a new era of peace in West Asia, claiming to end a 3,000-year-old conflict, glosses over deep and enduring complexities. The Gaza ceasefire, which appears to be holding, with Hamas and Israel releasing hostages and prisoners, is undoubtedly a relief for Palestinians and hostages' families. But the greater challenge lies in implementing the next phase, let alone building a new Middle East. A notable outcome declaration by Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the US, also calling for safeguarding of the fundamental rights of Palestinians and Israelis. It recognized the region's historical and spiritual significance to multiple faiths and committed signatories to dismantling extremism and radicalization. But the declaration was silent on more contentious issues. Hamas's disarmament, one of the central objectives of the Trump plan of Israel's continuing military presence in Gaza. Mr. Trump later claimed that Hamas had promised to disarm, warning that if they don't disarm, we will disarm them, perhaps violently. But Israel, despite its 2 years in Gaza, has still failed to disarm Hamas. How then does Mr. Trump plan to disarm them? They also claimed that the Iran threat had been neutralized and asked more Arab countries to join the Abraham Accords. While Iran's regional influence has been dented, it remains an influential regional player. Hezbollah, despite military setbacks, continues to be a powerful socio-political actor within Lebanon, and the US attempts to disarm the Shia group have gone nowhere. In Yemen, despite relentless Saudi, American, British, and Israeli bombing campaigns, the Houthis, another Iranian ally, still control key population centers, including Said Sanaa. Moreover, Arab countries now have growing security concerns about Israel, particularly after its bombing of Qatar in September. Against this background, Mr. Trump's sweeping claims of regional peace ring hollow. What he should prioritize instead is ensuring that the Gaza ceasefire holds. The next step should be forcing Hamas to give up power in the enclave while pressing Israel to withdraw once peace is consolidated and reconstruction begins. The US with its and European allies should work towards a practical roadmap for the establishment of a Palestinian state unless the Palestinian question is resolved and the Israeli occupation ends. Grand declarations about remarking the region will remain little more than empty rhetoric and show safeguards for India's carbon market. The growth-driven model of development rooted in the Industrial Revolution has already pushed planetary boundaries beyond safe limits. Some call for degrowth to address environmental damage, but this is neither just nor feasible for developing countries that are still grappling with poverty and hunger. A more equitable path lies in decoupling growth from environmental harm. In other words, countries must find ways to reduce poverty and expand their economies without repeating the high pollution, high emission model of the past. This can be done by relying on cleaner technologies, renewable energy, and sustainable farming practices in India. For instance, the rapid expansion of solar energy and micro irrigation illustrate how growth and sustainability can go hand in hand. On carbon crediting is one such tool. A carbon credit represents a certified reduction or removal of greenhouse gases expressed in carbon dioxide equivalents. These can be generated through mitigation activities such as renewable energy or sequestration efforts such as reforestation, agroforestry, and partial farms by them to offset emissions while transitioning to cleaner process, ideally rewarding developing countries for adopting low carbon practices. Carbon credits are becoming with 175 million, 180 million retired annually, primarily from renewable energy and nature-based projects such as Red Plus and afforestation. India is also building its own carbon market through the carbon credit trading scheme. The scheme will set emission intensity benchmarks for energy intensive sectors and include voluntary offsets. A national registry and trading platform will manage Transactions with draft methods for biomass, compressed biogas, and low emission rice cultivation already released. Globally, agriculture based projects lag despite high potential. Of 64 Indian agricultural projects listed under VERA, only 4 are registered and none has issued credits. CIMMYT's research links this to weak farmers' engagement, training, and follow up, especially among smallholders and marginalized caste groups, carbon markets, and the risk of exploitation. Carbon projects are meant to reward communities at the front lines of climate action, but without safeguards, they risk replicating extractive power structures echoing the logic of colonial plantation. Rising carbon prices only heightens this risk. The northern Kenya Rangelands carbon projects offers a cautionary tale. Launched in 2012, it spanned 1.9 million hectares and sought to remove 50 million tons of CO2 over 30 years. Though framed as community-led, the project has drawn scrutiny by bypassing consent and weakening local land rights, raising critical questions about who truly controls and benefits from carbon projects. The project introduced rotational grazing and rangeland rangeland restoration, but cracks soon appeared. In 2023, Vera suspended credit issuance after advocacy groups highlighted flaws in soil carbon measurement and a lack of free, prior, and informed consent from indigenous communities. Petitioners alleged that the conservancies were created without public consultation on unregistered community land and enforced through armed rangers. In 2025, a Kenya court confirmed that key conservancies, key conservancies had bypassed public participation, prompting a second suspension by Vera. Community conservancies, common across Kenya, are locally managed bodies meant to promote sustainability and protect livelihoods through elected governance. In principle, they embody decentralized, community-driven resource management. Critics argue that the project's top-down grazing restrictions and opaque governance structures mirror colonial-era resources control, infringing on pastoralist land rights and underscoring the urgent need for community-led decolonized urban initiatives. Similarly, the Lake Turkana wind power project fenced 1,50,000 acres of community range land, cutting off herders from grazing roots and water. It raised the question of whether sustainability is advancing at the expense of the vulnerable. India could face similar risks. Carbon projects in afforestation, reforestation, and agriculture often extend into areas with customary land use. Plantation on village commons or forest fringes could disrupt access to grazing, fuel, wood, and forest produce without community consent. Agricultural projects have already shown signs of bypassing marginalized caste farmers while delivering few benefits. The Kenya judgment is a timely warning. Unless land rights, consent, and fair benefit sharing are secured, India's carbon market risks reproducing extractive models under the guise of climate action. Why carbon projects are vulnerable? Carbon projects can slip into modern plantation when powerful companies dominate and local communities are sidelined. In India, farmers and tribal communities often face information and power asymmetries that enable opaque deals and unfair benefit sharing. Developers are not required to disclose benefit sharing arrangements, and practices are often imposed top down with little regard for local context or consent. India's carbon credit trading scheme, while ambitious, focuses mainly on procedures and compliance with scant attention to land rights, FPIC, and equitable revenue distribution. These blind spots may expose vulnerable groups to exclusion and exploitation as the market expands. Over-regulation is not the solution, as burdensome legal frameworks could discharge even well-intentioned actors. What India needs is a balanced, lightweight regulatory architecture that guarantees transparency, formalizes benefit sharing, and protects community rights without creating bureaucratic choke points. Achieving this will require stakeholders' consultation, adaptive regulation, and a clear-eyed recognition of risky. Only then can India build trust and integrity in its carbon market while ensuring that climate action does not come at the cost of justice. None, none too soon. The timely arrival of the northeast monsoon bodes well for farmers. The timely arrival of the northeast monsoon, which benefits many parts of the southern peninsula, especially Tamil Nadu and the coastal and Rayalaseema regions of Andhra Pradesh, has brought relief to the region, given its importance from an agricultural as well as a disaster management perspective. Against the normal arrival date to 20 plus or minus 7 days, the monsoon set in on October 16. The India Meteorological Department has forecast above normal rain with more than 112% of the long period average. Going by the data for 1971 to 2020, the season's share in the annual rainfall in 48% for Tamil Nadu and over 30% for and Andhra Pradesh. The monsoon also witnesses at least three cyclonic disturbances over the Bay of Bengal. There is also the added factor of cloud bursts, which are more frequent now according to an Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology study. Consequently, coastal states face urban flooding with residents of Chennai living in dread of it going by their experiences of the past 10 years. Keeping this in mind, the Tamil Nadu government is putting in place a real-time flood forecasting system for Chennai to calibrate excess water discharge from the reservoirs in and around the city. In addition, the authorities, as in other southern states, are preparing the official machinery to handle any situation. Over the years, the loss of lives has dropped after effective coordination among the agencies concerned. However, there are still many areas in need of more forced attention. The state of stormwater drains and water courses to cities leaves must to be desired, but state government alone cannot be held responsible for this. That sciences of people still use water bodies as dumping yards only aggravates the problem, highlighting the near absence of community ownership among urban residents. In the farm sector, the shortage of fertilizers, particularly urea, has been bothering agriculturists. About a month ago, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, in a letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, flagged the issue. Other states which are dependent on rainfall during the southwest monsoon had also complained of urea shortage. The Union Ministry of Agriculture is reported to have enhanced urea demand for October. It was 36.65 lakh ton a year ago. Looking at the macro picture of the monsoon, the message is that as rainfall is expected to be more intense, the authorities at every level have to be vigilant and act in unison so that any adverse impact is reduced, if not eliminated. A reading of revisionism in constitutional history. A quiet revisionism in constitutional history is being seeded. Some commentators now argue that Sir Venerable Narsingh Rao, the constitutional advisor to the Constituent Assembly, was the real architect of India's constitution, while Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee, merely polished an already finished product. This argument may sound academic, but it is not. It represents an attempt to delete agency in India's founding story and to erase the moral force that B.R. Ambedkar brought to the making of the republic. Complementary, not competing. Both men were indispensable to the Constitution's creation, but their roles were entirely different. Sir B. N. Rao, a distinguished civil servant and jurist, was appointed constitutional advisor in July 1946. His assignment was technical and preparatory. Rao had in British India helped in the drafting of the Government of India Act of 1935. 11 years later, he had to prepare a working draft of the Constitution based on reports of the Constituent Assembly Committee and his study of other constitutions. He examined the American, Canadian, Irish, Australian, and Weimar models and consulted jurists such as Felix Frankfurter and Harold Lasky. On October 1947, he submitted his draft with 243 articles and 13 schedules. Laos document provided the assembly with a starting point. He had no seat in the Constituent Assembly and no political mandate. His authority was scholarly, not representative. Ambedkar's task was of the different order. As chairman of the drafting committee, he had to carry the constitution through the turbulence of partition, the murder of the Mahatma, and had to defend its provision clause by clause in the assembly. His responsibility was not only to refine the text but also to build consensus among sharply divided interests. To build the framework, Ambedkar made it a living instrument of justice. Ambedkar never denied Rao's contribution in his concluding address to the Constituent Assembly on November 25, 1949. He shared the credit that is given to me does not really belong to me, it belongs to partly to Dr. B. Rao, the Constituent Assembly, to the Constituent Assembly who prepared draft of the Constitution for the consideration of the drafting committee. He also said a part of the credit must go to the members of the drafting committee who, as I have said, have sat for 141 days. Much greater share of the credit must go to Mr. S.N. Mukherjee. The campaign to elevate B.N. Rao and sideline B.R. Ambedkar as the real architect of India's constitution is misplaced. He also said a part of the credit must go to the members of the drafting committee who, as I have said, have sat for 140 days. Much greater share of the credit must go to Mr. S.N. Mukherjee, the chief draftsman of the Constitution. His ability to put the most intricate proposals in the simplest and the clearest legal form can rarely be equaled, nor his capacity for hard work. Thus, the words which are open caused to claim that now Ambedkar, not Ambedkar, was the real author of the Constitution. In fact, show the opposite. Ambedkar called Rao's work a rough draft, not a finished text. The drafting committee and the assembly turned that raw material into the document that finally came into force in January 1950. Nor does any evidence suggest to show that Rao ever claimed to be the Constitution's author. His correspondence at the time with Ambedkar and Jawaharlal Nehru conveys respect and cooperation. The current effort to crown him as father of the Constitution restores both the record and draws on modesty. The political motive, the campaign to elevate Rao and sideline Ambedkar is not driven by scholarship alone. It reflects a discomfort with the idea that a Dalit thinker could stand at the center of the Republic's founding movement. Recasting Rao as the Constitution principal author is an attempt to reclaim authorship for caste privilege. It tamped Ambedkar's radical legacy and turned the social revolution into a bureaucratic exercise. The Constitution is not a sterile legal document. It is, first and foremost, a social manifesto which promises the dignity of the individual. It was born out of conflict, hope, and redemption. It represented the arrival of the oppressed at the table of power. To detach Ambedkar from it is to rob it of its soul. Ambedkar's presence in the Constituent Assembly was itself the result of a decisive act of political wisdom. He had originally been elected from Bengal, but after partition, that seat went to the Pakistan. Many within the Congress were hesitant to bring him back because of past disagreements. It was Mahatma Gandhi's intervention that settled the question. Though Gandhi and Ambedkar had plans towards separate electorates, Gandhi insisted that Ambedkar must be part of the assembly. He told Congress leaders that no constitution could claim legitimacy if the scheduled caste were excluded from its making. As a result, Ambedkar was elected from the Bombay presidency. Gandhiji's insistence was an act of foresight. In 1947, when the nation was fractured by religion and alienated Dalit leadership could have deepened the divide. By ensuring Ambedkar's inclusion, Gandhi prevented a crisis that could have weakened the new republic at its birth. Ambedkar's subsequent leadership proved that inclusion right. He turned the making of the constitution into a moral enterprise that bound the country together. Rao's draft provided the model and structure. Ambedkar gave the constitution its moral depth. The provisions on fundamental rights, directive principles, and affirmative action bear his imprint. His speeches in the assembly made the constitution a living moral philosophy. Ambedkar warned that political equality would fail without social and economic equality. Ambedkar warned that political equality would fail without social and economic equality. He shared how long shall we continue to deny equality in our social and economic life? If we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. We must remove this contradiction at the earliest possible moment, or else those who suffer from inequality will blow up the structure of political democracy which this assembly has so laboriously built up. That warning still remains the most powerful moral statement in India's constitutional history. The peril of forgetting every republic must guard its memory. The attempt to raise Rao above Ambedkar is part of a larger effort to drain the constitution of its radical spirit. It presents the founding as a matter of technical competence rather than social transformation. To honor Ambedkar is not a diminished law. Both serve the Republic faithfully, but the Constitution is more than a legal framework. It is a statement of national purpose. It needed a scholar's precision, but it also needed a reformer's conviction. Ambedkar was that reformer. When the constitution was adopted, leaders across the political spectrum, including Nehru, Patel, and Prasad, publicly acknowledged Ambedkar's central role. None suggested that Rao was the constitution's principal author. They understood the difference between drafting a text and shaping a nation's conscience. Rao deserves admiration as a brilliant advisor. Ambedkar deserves divers as the constitution's moral architect. The constitution was not written in the calm of colonial offices, but in the shadow of partition. The Mahatma assassination and caste operation to place Ambedkar at its center was not symbolic generosity, but a stage that India's new order would belong equally to those once excluded. Ambedkar never claimed sole authorship, yet his leadership of the drafting committee, his defense of public cause, and his vision of liberty, equality, and fraternity have defined the Indian Republic. To diminish his role is to betray the Republic's founding promise. Rao built the structure, Ambedkar filled it with justice. B.N. Rao deserves gratitude as the constitutional engineer. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar remains the architect and moral founder of modern India. To deny the truth is to deny the Republic. Guns, gold, and criminal cases. What election affidavits of leaders reveal from Patna, Bihar, Deputy Chief Minister Samrat Chaudhary and Vijay Kumar Sinha and the fierce leader of the opposition Tejasvi Yadav have at least one thing in common: their love for guns. All three have filed their nomination papers for the first phase of the Bihar Assembly election. According to his election affidavit filed on Wednesday, Mr. Yadav has an Italian Beretta MPB 330 bore pistol and 50 rounds of bullets worth 1.5 lakh rupees. His rival, Mr. Chaudhary, who submitted his nomination papers on Thursday, had a rifle worth 4 lakh rupees and a revolver given by his father worth 2 lakh rupees. Mr. Sinha owned a rifle and a revolver. Mr. Yadav had Mr. Yadav and his family have total assets worth 8.98 crore rupees, including movable assets rupees worth 6.12 crore rupees. His wife, Rashiri Alice, Rachel Iris, JDU, LP, LJP, RV, and RLM released list and the names of 243 candidates from Patna. With grandmother's photo in hand, these Pratap files papers from Patna. Grand Alliance fails to proceed, being amid tough bargaining by VIP leader. As Mukesh Sahni played hardball and the Rashtriya Janata Dal remained intractable. The CPI and the Congress made peacemakers during the discussion for the seat distribution for the Bihar polls. VIP likely to get 15 seats. BJP Bihar President mocks Mahagathbandhan over the negotiations. BJP named star campaigners. PM CM Dildesh BJP on Thursday released a list of 40 star campaigners featuring top leaders including Prime Minister Modi, Party Chief JP Nadda, and Union Minister Amit Shah and Rajnath Singh. The list features a mix of prominent leaders and celebrities. It includes five chief ministers, including Assam's Himanta Biswa Sarma, Delhi's Rekha Gupta, and Maharashtra's Devendra Fadnavis. Bhojpuri film actors Manoj Tiwari, Ravi Kishan, both MPs and Pawan Singh were also named. Mr. Shah reached Patna on Thursday on a three-day visit to strategize for the Bihar election. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar also started his campaign from Darbhanga and addressed public meetings in support of the LDA candidates. SCR aimed at what that says Digvijay Singh. Former Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Digvijay Singh on Thursday alleged that the Election Commission's Special Intensive Division across India was aimed at facilitating vote theft and claimed that the constituent parties of the India bloc would strongly oppose it with documentary evidence. Speaking at a private event, he accused the BJP of having 62 lakh voters removed from the electoral rolls in Bihar to influence the assembly election. He asserted, however, that the alliance in Bihar would still form the government. The alliance in Bihar is contesting every strongly and will defeat the NDA people are fed up with Nitish Kumar's government, Mr. Singh said. He said that the center was violating the fundamental rights of citizens. Bihar is looking forward to continuing its journey to progress at such a time Congress and RJD are indulging in mischief by raising row over Gurkhas, Yogi Adityanath from Uttar Pradesh says. And he will return to power with majority Devsai. Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Vishnu Devsai on Thursday asserted that the National Democratic Alliance would return to power with a thumping majority in Bihar after the assembly polls. The central government has been continuously making effort to make Bihar a fully developed state, he said. If the alliance parties do not come to a consensus and contest independency, it will benefit us as we will win more seats around us, Atwale says. The women who fought their way into the Afghan embassy, the fight in the briefing hall of the embassy last week was not primarily for gender justice or equality but for media access. Women hold up half the sky, but in the room at the Afghanistan embassy in New Delhi last week, there wasn't space for even one. The team of the visiting Taliban Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi, which closed the premises to hold a press conference and did not think it necessary to invite a single woman. The Ministry of External Affairs did not think it was necessary either. Earlier that day, Mr. Muttaqi was hosted at the Grand official venue in Hyderabad House without a woman, official or otherwise, inside. Whether this was mandated by the Taliban leader, a former Minister of Education, for a resign ban, doesn't allow girls in school beyond class 6 or a genuine oversight or a technical error as he termed it, it wasn't allowed to pass. Reportage of the men only press meet followed by public outrage forced the government to distance itself from the event and the Taliban delegation to rethink. 2 days later, I received a call inviting me to another press conference. Everyone was invited with no conditions laid on attire, as they may have been in Kabul. Inside the briefing hall, male journalists who had attended the previous press conference had cleared the front row for female journalists to ensure that Mr. Mutaki would have no choice but to see them and take their question. This is your day, said one of my male colleagues. We will not be asking any question so as to ensure you will all be able to. I smiled, protesting that we should behave as we normally do, sitting together without any gender distinction and compete for the official attention. But I was also touched by the gesture that day as Mr. Mutaki faced a fusillade of questions about the Taliban's denial of basic rights to women in the country. The solidarity of journalists against the prior injustice, however small, sent a powerful message. Women cannot and should not be left out of the room. The truth is, most journalists see their profession as gender neutral, although there are circumstances and countries where they face different impediments to doing their jobs in the heat of conflict or a riot, or even during a Raku's election rally. Women will often find that they are not assigned the tough stories disgraced from the front lines and trenches in the war, or face sexual harassment in the newsroom or in the field during the protest in the capital against the brutal rape of Nirbhaya in 2011. In 2012, I remember young female colleagues remaining ashes faced from India Gate with horrifying stories of being manhandled or groped by protesters themselves. On assignment in wars, I have often been told this is no place for women or been asked to stay back. These are all battles women face in every field, not just in journalism, and learn to fight them. I will also admit that women journalists are sometimes treated more politely and with more consideration than their male counterparts. I once fought my way onto an Indian warship going on an evacuation mission as the only woman on board. I got my own cabin, while five colleagues were cramped into one room on hard bunks. Let's be clear, though the fight that day in the briefing hall of the Afghanistan embassy was not primarily for gender justice or equality, but for media access. It is a fight that journalists face on a daily basis, and increasingly in democracies such as India and the US, where leaders shy away from press conference or restrict the media that can attend or the questions they can ask. That battle for access they have been won on that day is that all, but the fight continues. Sadly, the much larger and in some ways more vital battle for millions of Afghan women to go to school, college, or work, and even gyms and public parks has not even begun to be fought. Is land lack is landlockedness the reason for Bihar's underdevelopment? It is election season in Bihar, while the opposition often speaks about the lack of development and industrialization in the state in its campaigns. The National Democratic Alliance, which is in power, argues that a change of government will bring back the jungle raj of the earlier decade. What makes Bihar one of India's most underdeveloped states is underloadedness, a reason for its undevelopment. Underdevelopment, as some argue, are Nagas and Mahindranath have to discuss the question in a conversation moderated by Saptaparna Ghosh edited excerpts. It is often argued that Bihar is disadvantaged because it is landlocked state. Punjab and Telangana are landlocked as well, and they are being relatively well. So, how is being landlocked a constant for Bihar? Are Nagas, if you look at the success of Telangana, especially Hyderabad, it is mostly because of the tertiary sector. It has nothing to do with geography. If a state has an educated workforce and good infrastructure, being landlocked will not be an issue. Punjab too has a developed network of railways and roads and has FCI Food Corporation of India godowns across the country to help with export of crops. Mahendranath Thakur, let us look at Bihar's prominent exports. Makhana, lychee and corn. It has been difficult for Bihar to transport these items from Patna to West Bengal or to any port. These alongside the vegetables, Bihar exports are perishable. Moreover, significant costs are incurred due to road transport, time and distance are crucial factors in agrarian exports. One way Bihar is attempting to resolve this issue is by launching projects along the Ganga. So it is not that concerns about being landlocked are not genuine, but they cannot be cited as a major reason for the state's economic backwardness. Professor Nagar spoke of the tertiary sector. You spoke of agrarian exports. Bihar has been assessed as an agrarian economy. What should be its imperative going towards industrialization of agriculture? MT in the last 10 years, the Chief Minister has tried to engage with industrialists. However, industrialists have been open, raised concern about access to ports, citing the need to spend more on transportation. Having said that, I do think that in this modern capitalist system, no society can think of surviving with just agricultural products, while Bihar should capitalize on its potential in terms of agricultural production and processing. It must ultimately transition to industry. Without that, there is no future. RN says before we think of high technology and our manufacturing industries, we should consider where the comparative advantage lies. Four-fifths of Bihar's labor force is in agriculture, but despite Bihar having fertile land and irrigation facilities, agricultural productivity is mostly less than the national average. Why is agriculture not picking up? That is the big question. In the 1970s or 80s, a committee set up under the agricultural economist SR Sen was figuring out how to take the green revolution to the Indo-Gigantic belt. It came up with a plan for massive state investments in infrastructure and electrification to ensure that states have abundant water for the cultivation of wheat and rice. Surprisingly, the green revolution speed. Surprisingly, the green revolution spread to the Malwa region of Madhya Pradesh rather than the Indo-Gigantic belt. We must understand what went wrong. I think it will be both in Bihar's interest and the national interest to get basic wheat, rice, and sugarcane cultivation going. This way, Western India will be burdened less. It can conserve more water and move to value-added crops. MT says on the agrarian front, I don't think Bihar should repeat the mistake that Punjab made during the Green Revolution, which produced a water crisis. Although Bihar has abundant water, it may face the same consequences as Punjab if water is overused. Moreover, increasing agricultural production is linked with the heavy use of fertilizers and pesticides, creating a health crisis. Therefore, I don't support the shifting of agriculture to eastern India. Agriculture is not profitable anywhere in the world unless it is heavily supported by the state. RM says Madhya Pradesh was also seen as a backward state. It does not have the same water resources as Bihar, yet the green revolution expanded there. Prosperity in the Malwa region is amazing. Therefore, I am skeptical about the idea that agriculture has no potential. So, what do you think are the factors that contributed to Bihar's underdevelopment? MT says, apart from what I have shared, there are also notions that the center is not interested in Bihar's growth. The state, I think, is frozen in its transition from feudalism to capitalism. One of the reasons for this is the international colonization of the state. Earlier, Bihar supplied raw materials, but due to policies such as freight colonization, it suffered significantly, and industries did not develop locally despite having the advantage of raw material availability. Bihar ultimately lost revenues and its natural advantage. Now, with the supply of labor from Bihar, nobody is interested in developing the state. RN says a commodity where freight colonization was done and which benefited eastern India was cement. Steel did not occur the same advantage. Cement has heavy transport cost incorporated to steel, so the freight equalization policy for it helped eastern India. Furthermore, by Biharis are living Bihar has no element of capitalist conspiracy. In fact, when investments in agriculture were made in Bihar, migration to Punjab declined. It is clear that if people have more options at home, they will not move out. Literature often suggests that Bihar has is socialist hangover and that entrepreneurship does not draw confidence. RN said the socialist ideology in Bihar is often equated with caste politics and caste in general, basically distributing limited resources across various castes. If the force shifts to productive investment, it will do a lot of good for Bihar. Policy must focus on how to augment production rather than looking at redistributing the limited resources more equitably or in a manner that helps people stay in power. MT says Bihar has never really followed the socialist model. It also failed to understand the logic behind India's shift to capitalism. Bihar is currently at a significant disadvantage for any structural change. There must be a solid commitment to reinvestment by the union government. Unless that is done, the transition to capital will not take place. With respect to migration, if there are good working conditions and a decent income, no Bihari would like to migrate. The amount of investment required to help Bihar move out of this frozen transition phase has not been made. It could be linked to general societal politics. One argument, as Sabal Gupta used to make, relates to the lack of a distinct Bihari identity, or as Prashant Kishore says of the concept of Bihari Ashmita. Would special status be of any help to Bihar? RN says, I am not sure it would help. The bigger question relates to whether it will be utilized productively or not. Bihar lacks the state capacity to use it. Whereas if you give the same money to Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, they will grab it and use it better. Being among the poorest states, Bihar gets a considerable amount of resources from the Finance Commission on considerations of its backwardness and to bring greater equality among states. When those are not utilized, the money of many of these grants are performance based, meaning the state must raise its own share of resources to access the full amount. This often doesn't happen in Bihar. MP says if a good amount of money is invested, it would certainly be beneficial. However, no change will come unless we make sure that the money we reinvest is not appropriated by a small number of people. Elites, politicians, and contractors, if the money is invested properly, it leads to capital formation, but this also requires a kind of social revolution, one that raises public awareness that these funds are not free gift, but more like loans. People must understand that we need to rebuild and strengthen our society in order to repay that investment. About state capacity, many funding packages include a clause requiring the state to contribute a portion of the investment. Now, suppose you give me 100 rupees and tell me that I have added to it to the utilized amount. I can't do that. I don't have the money in a way that amounts to forcing me not to use the money. The special status might be of help. It might remove these conditions and allow us to access the support without being held back by the limited state capacity. Gujarat ministers quit ahead of reshuffle from Ahmedabad in a sweeping move ahead of the anticipated cabinet reshuffle. All ministers in the Bhupendra Patel-led Gujarat government tendered their resignations on Thursday, clearing the way for a new team to be sworn in on Friday. The existing Council of Ministers, which had 17 members, protests against Indians in Australia and extremist sentiments, says its minister. From New Delhi, the recent anti-immigration rallies in Australia that targeted the Indian community do not represent majority of Australian people, said any ally. Canberra's Minister of Multicultural Affairs here on Thursday, speaking at an event organized by the Australian High Commission, said the government of India had raised the issue of anti-immigration rallies targeting the Indian community in Australia, saying anti-India sentiments was a minority extremist sentiment. We value you, we thank you, we stand by you. You belong in Australia, you belong in Austria, you belong in Australia, and so to the people who would tell immigrants to go home. I say they are all. I want to reassure everyone that the divisive rhetoric expressed at the anti-immigration and the anti-migration rallies is not shared by the overwhelming majority of Australians, said Ms. Ali, who is of Egyptian origin and is known for her inclusive politics. Ms. Ali's visit to India came a month after anti-immigration rallies were held in multiple cities across Australia that targeted the Indian community. Following the rallies, there are increased reports of targeting of Indian community in the country through racist abuse and slurs. MS Ali said the authorities in India and Australia had been in contact over the incidents and said, understandably, the government of India has expressed their concern to my government about these recent anti-immigration protests. I appreciate that the government of India recognizes that the actions of this small group do not represent the broader Australian community. It is not the Australia that I know, it is a minority extremist sentiment held by a vanishingly small group in our country, said MS Ali in a speech that drew on her personal experience of growing up as an Australian opposition background in a multicultural part of Sydney. Abusmad North Bastar Visions Free of Maoist chassis from Raipur. HAL third LCA Tizar production line to be inaugurated today from Nashik. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh will inaugurate Hindustan Aeronautics Limited newly established third production line for its light combat aircraft, the Tejas Mark 1A variant, at its Nashik facility on Friday. This will have the capacity to manufacture 8 aircraft per year. The minister will also inaugurate the second production line for the Hindustan Turbo Trainer. For the basic trainer aircraft, a senior Asian official said that the occasion would be marked by the maiden flight of the first LCA Tejas. Modi had outsourced key decisions to US Congress said from New Delhi. Confident Russia, India energy ties will continue from Moscow. Russia is a confident that its energy cooperation with India will continue. The country's Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said on Thursday, a day after United States President Donald Trump claimed that New Delhi assured him to stop purchasing oil from Russia. We continue to cooperate with our friendly partners. Our energy resource is in demand. It is economically viable and feasible, said Mr. Novak, who looks after Russia's energy sector. I am confident that our partners will continue to work with us, interact and develop energy cooperation, he added. Sri Lankan Prime Minister goes down memory lane at alma mater. Harini Amrashya studied at Delhi University Hindu College in 1991, praising India's diversity. She has urged students to never underestimate the power of asking difficult questions. From New Delhi, the acceptance of diversity and the importance of asking difficult questions are enduring memories of India for Sri Lankan Prime Minister Harini Amrasya, who began her first official visit to India on Thursday with a walk down memory lane to her alma mater, Delhi University's Hindu College. She also met External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, who said he had discussed India's continued support to Sri Lanka and strengthening India-Sri Lanka cooperation in education and capacity building, addressed business leaders and attended a diplomatic reception. On Friday, the Sri Lankan Prime Minister will hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and is expected to discuss deepening economic cooperation and connectivity between the two countries. Pre-test for census first phase to be held from November 10. The option to self-enumerate for the census will be available from November 1 to 7. From New Delhi, the pre-test for the first phase of the census 2027 will be conducted from November 10 to 30 in selected sample areas of all states and union territories. The Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India said in a notification on Thursday. The option to self-enumerate will be available from November 1 to 7. The notification added this implies that the methodology on caste enumeration has not been finalized yet, as unlike the previous instances, the pre-test for only the first phase, house listing and house census has been notified on Thursday. In 2019, the questions to be asked in both phases, the housing census and population enumeration, and the national population register were tested in succession from August 12 to September 30. Testing efficacy, pre-test is required to test the efficacy of the entire exercise that will be held in two phases, with the housing census and population enumeration scheduled from April 1, 2026 to February 28, 2027. This will be the first digital census and then the first to enumerate caste in independent India. The test will evaluate the proposed questions, data collection, methodologies, training effectiveness, logistics, printing processes, data quality assessment, and identity potential field issues, among others. Trump and MEA at odds over Russian oil imports. I was not happy that India was buying oil, and Prime Minister assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia. Mr. Trump told reporters at the White House with US Ambassador designate to Delhi, Sergio Gol, also present. It's a little bit of a process, but the process is going to be over with soon. Mr. Trump said, adding, that's a big step. Now we are going to get China to do the same thing on Thursday. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs slammed the US for unilateral bullying over its legitimate imports from Russia, going on to praise Mr. Modi as a great man who loves Trump. Mr. Modi said he did not want to destroy Mr. Modi's political career. I have watched India for years. It's not an incredible country, not every single year you had a new leader, Mr. Trump said, adding, my friend has been there now for a long time. It was unclear from Mr. Trump's words how exactly he believed Mr. Modi had relayed these commitments on oil. The two leaders last spoke, according to official statements on October 9. The MEA declined to comment on whether Mr. Trump had discussed the issue with Mr. Modi in a statement issued on Thursday, a few hours after Mr. Trump's controversial commitment. The MEA sought to clarify its position. While it did not specifically mention Russian oil, it said it was seeking to expand energy procurement from the US. The MEA was more direct on its response to UK's sanctions on Niara, an Indian refiner owned by Russian oil major Rosneft. Supreme Court confident that AC will reveal the hard data. Russia offers to make Su-57 jets in India. Supreme Court upholds stay on 42% OBC quota in Telangana. Restoring fiscal space for the states with rising public aspiration and widening service gaps. States expenditure commitments are steadily increasing. GST introduction has altered the resource position of the states in addition to centralizing the authority through dividends. The journey of goods and service tax implementation has entered a major new stage with the latest restructuring of tax slabs, a move expected to pass on over 2 lakh of rupees in tax benefits to consumers. With this, the GST compensation stands abolished as it merges with the regular tax, marking the end of an era of compensation under GST. The decision is likely to boost local demand and the consequent growth in revenue may reduce the expected revenue loss. However, certain states feel that no proper estimation of this loss has been made and that the actual loss could be much higher than projected. They are aggrieved that their demand for compensation has been ignored. Those studies show that GST implementation has largely benefited all states through liberal compensation mechanism. The post compensation tax structure is expected to raise concern in some of them. The tragic nostalgia of city pop and its legacy of melancholia. In the wake of Mickey Matsubara's death, we revisit the lush metropolitan sound that defined 80s Japan, tracing the tragedy of its doomed rise during the bubble economy and its modern resurgence as a nostalgic soundtrack for a generation longing for lost optimism. 2 decades ago, Miki Matsubara died quietly in Osaka, far from the lights that once shimmered off her stage-ready smile. She was only 44, but her voice was already immortal, the woman who had given Japan one of its most enduring pop allies. Moyankan no Jews was gone, leaving behind an anthem that felt like a conversation between a nation at the height of its optimism and the generations born into its aftermath. In the years since her death, Maharashtra Matsubara had become something of a ghostly emissary for an entire sound. Know your English. My cousin has joined Brahmachari and Sons. Why has he joined that Mickey Mouse company? It's not a Mickey Mouse company, it's owned by Mr. Brahmachari. When you call a business organization a Mickey Mouse, it means it is small and unimportant. For example, my cousin has a Mickey Mouse business set up in Hyderabad. Your cousins may be a Mickey Mouse company, but I can assure that Brahmachari and Son is no Mickey Mouse company. Mr. Brahmachari called himself the managing director, but this so-called company is actually a Mickey Mouse operation which he runs from his house. What about your company? Is it? No. No, you have branches in all the southern states. But unfortunately, I work in a department which is the Cinderella of the company is Cinderella department. It's Cinderella with a stress on the third syllable. I see. But what does Cinderella mean? A person or a thing that receives little attention or respect is often referred to as Cinderella, just like the Cinderella in the fairy tale. That's right. With the way our hockey team is doing, hockey may become the Cinderella of Indian sports. That's true. When my father was studying in college, I believe physics was the Cinderella of the science. Your father was a lucky man indeed. English literature and home science are considered to be Cinderella subjects, meaning subjects which many people think are not important. That's right. Can I say? For some time, Sujata was the Cinderella of our school debating team. You certainly can. Many people believe that Department of Education is the Cinderella department of our state government. Who cares about education these days? No one. Who are you going to talk about next? Gulfi? Not a bad idea. Actually, considering the fact that I have a goofy person like you sitting next to me, what does goofy mean? It means a silly or a crazy person. For example, my boss gets some really goofy ideas sometimes, and one of his goofy ideas was to hire a goofy person like you, I suppose. Maybe, by the way, how did you do in your test? Did you, as usual, goof in my places? Goof, one of the meanings of goof is to make a mess of something. No, I didn't goof up in my test. Here is another example. Monica Seals had a chance of winning the French Open, but she really goofed up in the finals. In the play that I saw yesterday, the actor kept goofing up his lines. Can I say that? You certainly can, Goofy. I thank all my brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, students and scholars, teachers and trainers, professors, professionals, officials, listeners, learners. I thank all respected doctors and directors. I thank all honorable advocates, supervisors, administrative advisors. I thank all honorable administrative managers. I thank the most honored President Mr. Modi ji. Thank you very much. Good night to all of you. Thank you.